Hey guys, tonight we're going to do something a little strange. We're going to fall asleep in the Middle Ages. Picture this. You open your eyes, but instead of your memory foam pillow and blackout curtains, there's the faint creak of timber above your head, straw poking your skin, and the smell of wet wool and something goat-like. You're not in Kansas anymore, or even anywhere remotely clean. You've been born in the Dark Ages, that murky stretch of time after the fall of the Roman Empire when Europe kind of fell into a deep nap, one with plagues, pitchforks, and a deeply confused sense of dental hygiene. And fair warning, you probably won't survive this. But that's okay, we're only pretending. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, I'd love to know where you're listening from and what time it is. Drop it in the comments. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. It's still dark when you wake. No alarm clock, just the sound of a rooster's broken cry outside and the steady breath of your siblings sprawled on the dirt next to you. You share this hut with at least 7 people, plus 2 chickens and a piglet who thinks it owns your straw pile. You stretch, bump someone's elbow, and immediately regret it. Everyone's too close, too warm, and it smells like old onions, damp wool and feet. The walls are wood, but not the kind you're thinking of, not neat planks or smooth logs. These are rough-hewn, daubed with a mix of mud, straw, and sometimes, yes, cow dung. It holds surprisingly well, though during heavy rains, the corners weep. There's no glass on the windows, just oiled animal skin stretched tight. It glows faintly amber in the morning gloom, like old parchment. Cold air creeps through the cracks and tickles your nose. You burrow deeper under your coarse wool blanket, one you share with 2 brothers and a sister who kicks in her sleep. Your mother's already up, stoking the central hearth. The smoke from last night's fire never fully left. It curls in lazy, stubborn spirals up through a small hole in the roof. It stings your eyes, but keeps the bugs away. Small blessings. You sit up, head pounding slightly from the cold. The first thing you do today is not check your phone, because you don't have one. You reach for your shoes instead, wooden-soled clogs with leather ties. They're stiff with yesterday's mud and probably frozen. Fun. As you walk outside, the cold punches you right in the nose. The morning is misty, your breath ghosting in front of you. Fields stretch around the village, quiet and frost-bitten. The smell of smoke, manure, and something vaguely sweet hangs in the air. It's oddly comforting. You step past the pigsty, its occupant snorts in its sleep, and head to the well. Water is fetched daily. No plumbing here. You winch up a wooden bucket, and it groans as if it resents you. You wash your face in icy water, fully awake now. Back inside, breakfast is bubbling in the pot over the fire. It's grey. Mostly barley, a few old turnips, maybe a shred of dried meat if someone was lucky yesterday. Your mother stirs it with a carved wooden spoon like it's a sacred ritual. It kind of is. Don't forget the saint's blessing, she mutters. She means the sprig of rosemary she hangs above the pot. It's supposed to ward off kitchen demons. Historians still argue whether this sort of home ritual counted as genuine Christian piety or leftover pagan weirdness. You sit and eat from a shared bowl. No forks. Spoons if you're lucky. Fingers otherwise. Everyone is quiet. Eating is serious work. Calories matter when you're expected to walk 6 miles today and then thresh grain until your hands go numb. After eating, your father leaves to fix a fence. Your sister carries a basket of eggs to the Lord's manor. You have crow duty. Your job is to stand in the field and wave your arms, yelling at any birds trying to sneak a snack from the cabbages. You're 6 years old. This is your contribution to the economy. You're handed a stick with a carved chicken skull on the end for flair and sent out like a pint-sized scarecrow. You kind of hate the birds. They're clever and rude. One in particular, black as midnight with a missing tail feather, seems to enjoy taunting you. You name him Jerkwing. He'll be your nemesis for the next 3 summers. Midway through your shift, you pee behind a bush, toilet breaks are primitive and frequent, and chew a bit of tree resin to freshen your breath. It tastes like pine and disappointment. A traveler wanders past the edge of the field. You freeze. Travelers are rare and strange. This one wears a cloak full of little bones and smells like garlic and soot. He tips his head and says nothing. You do not wave. When you finally return home, your hands are frozen, your shoes are soaked, and someone has used your favorite rock as a stool again. Tragedy. Still, you made it. You didn't die. You even scared off Jerkwing once. As night falls again, your family gathers around the fire. There's a story told in whispers about the time St. Cuthbert slapped a demon in the face with a salted trout. Probably not church-approved, but highly entertaining. You drift off to sleep, wrapped in the same scratchy blanket, soot still on your face, feet cold, dreams flickering with images of saints, birds, and oddly powerful trout. The next day begins much the same. No curtains to draw, no snooze button to slap, just the dull grey light bleeding through the oiled skin windows and the now familiar ache in your back from sleeping on woven rushes and whatever straw remains under your blanket. You stretch, careful not to elbow the sibling still snoring next to you, and sniff. Yep, breakfast is boiling again. Today's porridge smells slightly less like desperation, which is nice. You're not sure what's different. Maybe there's a shred of leek in there, or a beet, or possibly a rat. Your mother calls it pottage. It's the same meal every day, but the name changes depending on what she wants you to believe. You sit cross-legged near the hearth as she ladles steaming grey mush into a bowl. Your wooden spoon has a crack that always leaks a little. You know to eat fast. Once the porridge cools, it becomes approximately the consistency of wall plaster. This morning, someone managed to trade for salt. It's a big deal. Salt is a treasure, used to preserve meat, clean wounds, and season the otherwise horrifying. You take a cautious bite and sigh. Bland, sure, but it doesn't taste like dirt. Luxury. You eat with the family, all crammed around the fire in an awkward oval. Talking is minimal. Everyone's chewing or thinking about chores. Your uncle farts and blames it on the pig. Again. That pig deserves better. After the meal, the bowl is wiped with a crust of yesterday's bread. That crust gets shared too. Waste not. You don't even complain about the chewiness anymore. It's become nostalgic. You don't go scarecrowing today. You've been promoted to dung duty. It's exactly what it sounds like. You, a basket, and the solemn task of scooping manure from around the village and hauling it to the compost pile behind the herb garden. Glamorous? No. Important? Weirdly, yes. It keeps people from stepping in it, and the compost helps grow the next round of cabbages that everyone's going to pretend to like. While gathering from behind the church, you overhear the priest speaking with a traveling friar. Something about relics and indulgences. You don't fully understand, but you catch a phrase that makes your ears twitch. Holy toe of St. Dunstan. You imagine a golden toe sitting on a velvet pillow. You wonder if it stinks. Historians still argue whether many of these so-called relics were real or just well-sold souvenirs. Honestly, who can tell the difference between a saint's toe bone and, say, a leftover soup bone from a feast? Back home, You finally finish your smelly shift and wash your hands in rainwater. Soap isn't a daily thing. It's expensive and rare. When it's used, it's made from lye, ashes, and animal fat. Smells like regret and makes your skin feel like sandpaper. Still, you scrub. Later, your older sister helps prepare dinner. The same pot from this morning gets reused. Some chopped greens, a sprinkle of dried peas, and something that may have once been pigeon. She pulls a feather out of her sleeve and shrugs. Your job is to grind barley. You do this using a large flat stone and a rounded one. It's tedious, slow, and if you accidentally slip, you grind part of your finger. It happens. You keep going. The barley mash gets boiled, seasoned with garlic, if there is any, and stirred with the same spoon from breakfast. You're not even mad. Your standards have adjusted. When the food is finally done, you eat again in silence. The fire crackles. The shadows are long. You like this time of day, when the work is over and no one expects you to chase birds or collect droppings. As your father sharpens a blade, your mother lights a little taper and sets it in a bowl of animal fat. The flickering glow dances across the low ceiling, casting strange shapes. Your youngest brother giggles. It looks like a ghost. You all pretend to be scared, even though you are slightly scared. You're in the Middle Ages, after all. Ghosts are taken seriously. Your mother begins to tell a story, her voice low and rhythmic. It's about a woman who fed her husband bad bread after he mocked her sewing. He sprouted horns, ran off into the forest, and was never seen again. Probably a metaphor, or maybe not. You glance at the door. It's barely hanging on its hinges and made of crooked slats tied with rope. It doesn't keep out wind, wolves, or unwanted spirits. But it does creak satisfyingly whenever someone pushes it open. The sound you associate with danger or snacks. That night, as you fall asleep to the soft snoring and fire crackling, your stomach is full, enough, your hands are sore, and your mind drifts to strange images of golden toes, horned husbands, and barley that bites back. You're starting to get used to this place, or maybe you're just too tired to resist it. You wake before sunrise this time. Your bladder says it's urgent, and nature is not polite about scheduling. You slip out from under the wool blanket and tiptoe through a minefield of limbs, firewood, and one extremely judgmental chicken that somehow made it inside during the night. You grab your cloak, it smells like mildew and sheep, and step into the icy dawn. Outside, the mist is thick enough to chew. Everything is quiet except the occasional rustle from the animal pens and the faint clang of someone else already at work. That's the thing about living in the Dark Ages. There are no weekends. There's just things we must do and things we must survive. After relieving yourself near a thistle bush, which teaches you a painful lesson about aiming in the dark, you trudge back in to warm up your toes. The hearth is still warm. You curl around it and try to nap again, but it's no use. Your stomach's already thinking about breakfast, even if breakfast isn't thinking about you. Today is special, though. Today is the day you get to be a crow boy. Well, again. See, every child in the village has turns chasing birds from the fields. Crows, magpies, ravens, all very clever and very hungry. They love your barley even more than you do. So you're sent out, armed with a wooden rattle, a slingshot made from scrap linen, and what can only be described as intense personal spite. You head down the muddy path, past your neighbor's crumbling hut and the suspiciously swollen creek, and out to the field. The crows are already there, gorging themselves. One of them, the same one from before, Jerkwing, locks eyes with you. It's personal now. You rattle your stick and shout something vaguely threatening. It works, for about 3 seconds. Then Jerkwing hops smugly to the next row and resumes eating. You sigh. It's going to be a long day. Between crow-chasing bouts, you pass the time watching the road. Sometimes merchants pass through, but mostly it's just pilgrims, beggars, or the occasional lost goat. One time you saw a man painted entirely blue. Your uncle said he was a wild Welshman. You're not sure what that means, but it's stuck. A monk passes today. He doesn't look at you, just hums a tune in Latin while walking with a worn satchel slung over his shoulder. You wonder where he's going. Monks have mysterious lives, books, bees, and vows of silence. Also, weird haircuts. By midday, your arms are sore, your feet are wet, and your stomach is making protest noises. You sit on a stump and pull out your snack, a hunk of rye bread so dense it could stop an arrow. You chew slowly, staring at the clouds. A moment of peace. Then Jerkwing returns. Later that afternoon, while trying to drive a particularly bold bird away from a half-covered cabbage, you slip in the mud and land squarely on your back. A crow cackles at you. You throw a rock in its general direction and shout something not quite appropriate for your age. Don't worry, your teacher isn't around. No one is. You do manage to scare the birds off for a while, and that earns you a nod from a passing field worker. Not praise exactly, but as close as it gets here. You feel oddly proud. You protected the cabbage. That means something, right? As the sun starts to dip, you're called back in by your mother's shout. You return home, mud-covered, exhausted, and smelling like a failed soup. Your little brother laughs and points at the clump of moss stuck to your sleeve. You flick it at him. He shrieks, classic sibling bonding. Dinner is more of the same barley and greens mixture, but someone found wild garlic today, so the flavor is aggressive but interesting. You eat quietly, thinking about the monk and the blue-painted man. You wonder if anyone ever leaves this place. Afterward, your father takes you aside. He hands you a small carved whistle. For tomorrow, he says. Scares the birds better than yelling. You smile. It's crooked and splintery, but it's yours. Your first tool. You feel important. That night, as you curl up again on the straw-stuffed mat, you hold the whistle tight in your hand. Outside, the wind moans low, and you hear an owl in the woods beyond the fence. Or maybe a spirit. Hard to say. Either way, you pull your blanket tighter. Historians still argue whether rural children in this era had anything resembling playtime, or if every waking moment was folded into survival. Honestly? You think chasing crows kind of counts as both. As your eyes flutter closed, you think of Jerkwing, plotting his revenge. And in your dream you fly, chasing him across golden fields that stretch forever, laughing through the wind, free for a moment in a world made of mud, mystery, and barley. You're startled awake by the low, booming toll of a bell. It echoes across the fields and through the chill morning mist like the voice of a tired giant. You sit up, still half wrapped in your blanket, blinking sleep out of your eyes. Your mother murmurs something about matins and the Lord's house, and suddenly you remember, it's Sunday. Time to get holy. You're not exactly sure what Sunday means theologically speaking, but you do know that it means two things. Your knees will hurt from kneeling on cold stone, and your stomach will complain loudly through every hymn. You throw on your least muddy tunic and a woolen hood, brush straw out of your hair, and try to clean your face with a damp rag that smells suspiciously like goat. Then you and your family make your way along the muddy path to the village church, everyone in slow, silent procession, like pilgrims headed to something sacred or slightly disappointing. The church is small but impressive in its own way. Thick stone walls, narrow windows, and a crooked wooden door that groans like a ghost whenever it opens. The inside smells of wax, damp stone, and centuries of whispered prayers. The priest stands at the front in a robe that looks freshly laundered, a luxury, and a golden cross hangs around his neck like it weighs more than his head. The altar behind him is covered in worn cloth, a few dried flowers, and a relic. Some say it's a bit of St. Edmund's finger. Others say it's just a chicken bone painted gold. Historians still argue whether the relic trade was spiritual devotion or medieval marketing. The sermon is in Latin. You don't understand a word. No one does, except maybe the priest, and even that's debatable. So you sit on a cold wooden bench, trying not to fall asleep as he drones on, in a voice that could calm a stampede or cause it to nap. You pick at a splinter on the pew. It's more spiritually engaging than the liturgy. Around you, people murmur prayers, cross themselves at the right times, and look vaguely terrified. God, after all, is everywhere. Watching, judging, possibly smiting. It's a lot of pressure for someone who just recently learned how to tie their belt. You kneel when everyone else kneels. You stand when everyone else stands. At one point, there's a loud sneeze from the back. The priest pauses, frowns, and continues. You suppress a giggle. Your sister elbows you. Stained glass windows filter in soft light, painting colorful shapes across the stone floor. You stare at the image of a saint slaying a dragon. It's beautiful. You wonder if the dragon was real. You kind of hope so. After an hour or so, there's communion. You're not old enough to receive it yet, but you watch in fascination as the adults line up. The host, the thin white wafer, feels like a holy cracker. You once snuck one off the altar during cleaning duty and immediately thought you'd be smoked. You weren't, probably because you felt so guilty you confessed to the pig. When the service ends, people file out slowly, nodding to the priest, who blesses them. He smells faintly of incense and something metallic. He gives you a longer look than usual. You wonder if he heard about the cracker. Outside, the day is cold but bright. Bells ring again, and the air feels cleaner. The village returns to its usual slow bustle, some back to the fields, others to chores, a few to the tavern. Yes, there's always a tavern. You don't go back to work today, though. Sundays are weird like that, half sacred, half normal. So you walk with your cousin to the edge of the village, down to the old oak tree, where a few children are gathering for a different kind of ritual, story time. Your grandmother arrives with her walking stick and her bundle of herbs. She lowers herself onto a stump, adjusts her woolen shawl, and begins. Her stories aren't from the Bible. They're older, stranger. This one's about a man who tricked death by hiding under a cow's belly. Another features a singing fish who grants wishes, but only if you dance in a puddle during a thunderstorm. You can't tell if these are warnings, jokes, or dreams. They all feel true. A soft wind blows through the clearing as she talks, lifting her gray hair like smoke. You shiver, not from cold, but from that deep, tingling sense of mystery that only old stories and flickering firelight can conjure. When the sun starts to sink, everyone returns home. Your mother is baking something flat and dark in the hearth. It's holy bread, she says, slightly sweeter, with a touch of dried berries. It tastes like burnt hope. You love it. Later that evening, the priest passes by your door. He blesses the house with a sprig of rosemary dipped in water. You bow your head. He doesn't mention the cracker incident. Thank the saints. That night, you lie in bed staring at the wooden rafters, tracing the spiderwebs in the candlelight. You think about stained glass, singing fish, and dragon-slaying saints. You're not sure where religion ends and myth begins, but you feel them both living in your chest like a quiet, glowing coal. You fall asleep whispering a half-remembered prayer, just in case. You wake to muffled coughing in the dark. Someone, your older cousin, you think, is wheezing in that slow, rattling way that makes everyone nervous. You stay still, listening. The sound echoes softly in the cramped hut. No one says anything, not yet. By morning she's pale, sweating, and too weak to sit up. Your mother is already heating water and muttering about bad humors and the need to rebalance. You're sent outside, not because you're in the way, but because, well, you probably are. Sick rooms are sacred spaces now, and besides, you've got a job to do. You head to the village healer, a stooped woman who lives in a smoke-stained cottage filled with jars, feathers, and smells you can't quite place. She doesn't like children, but she tolerates you. She nods slowly when you tell her about your cousin. She need garlic, sage, and a leech or 3, she mutters, already gathering items. You offer to help, but she waves you off. Go, fetch moss and a stone bowl. You'll know the moss, it smells like cat pee and despair. You do as you're told. You find the moss. You gag. Medicine in the Dark Ages isn't about healing as much as surviving, or distracting the sick long enough for their body to work things out on its own. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. Back at home, the healer's already at work. She places leeches behind your cousin's ears, packs her chest with warm herbs, and whispers prayers in Latin and something older, something sharp and earthy. Your mother doesn't question it. No one does. You just hope it works. You're not allowed inside anymore, so you spend the day hauling water, chopping roots, and avoiding the village barber. He's the one who pulls teeth, sets bones, and once tried to drain a man's headache by slicing behind his ear. The man died. The headache probably did too. Still, he's considered the best option. You overhear someone saying he might visit later, just in case. That phrase, just in case, suddenly feels a lot like a death sentence. Midday, you're sent to the church to light a candle. The priest gives you a nod and points to Saint Sebastian's statue. He's full of arrows and still smiling. That seems unfair. You light the stubby wax taper, whisper your cousin's name, and try not to feel like it's pointless. Historians still argue whether medieval people actually believed in the medical efficacy of saints, or if the rituals were just a way to feel less helpless. Honestly, it's probably both. The human heart is tricky like that. Back outside, you meet a group of children by the well. One of them has a boil the size of a walnut on his neck. No one mentions it. We all see it. No one says a word. He laughs and throws a pebble at your feet. You throw one back. This is how affection works now. Dinner is quiet. The stew is watery and tastes faintly of cabbage and dread. Your mother keeps glancing toward the back room. You don't ask. You eat, say your prayers, and try to pretend you didn't notice the extra candle she lit at the hearth. That night, you dream of your cousin floating above the fields, wrapped in linen, her body glowing like glass. She waves at you, smiles, then disappears into a cloud of birds. You wake just before dawn. The coughing is gone. You listen. Too still, too quiet. She's gone. The healer leaves without a word. Your mother weeps silently into her apron. Your uncle doesn't say anything. He just stares into the fire. You help clean, fetch more water, and watch as your cousin's body is wrapped in white cloth and laid on a wooden plank near the door. She looks peaceful, or empty. You can't decide which. The priest comes later to perform last rites. He chants, swings a small incense burner, and sprinkles water. You kneel beside the others, your head bowed. Not crying, but numb. You don't bury her right away. The ground's too hard. She'll rest in the shed tonight, covered in herbs to keep away spirits and, worse, tomorrow the men will dig. That night the fire burns low. Your family barely speaks. Even the pig is quiet. You stare at the ceiling, thinking about leeches, saints, and how something can vanish without warning. No lightning bolt. No warning bell. Just one day here, next day gone. And yet you sleep. Because the body still craves rest, even when the heart feels hollow. The first snow comes not with a storm, but a quiet, shivering hush. You wake to a pale light leaking through the window skins. The usual smells of smoke and cabbage have been replaced with something strange, clean, almost crisp. You crawl to the door, unlatch it with fingers that still remember yesterday's burial, and step into a world made of silence. Snow. A thin dusting at first, coating the muddy paths and thatched roofs in soft powder. Everything looks like it's been dipped in flour and regret. Your breath clouds in front of you, your bare toes curling instinctively in the cold. You step back inside and try to warm them near the hearth, where a weak fire barely survives under yesterday's ashes. Winter, you're told, is not just a season, it's a test. You wrap your tunic tighter and help your mother move the food stores. Onions, dried beans, root vegetables buried in straw. A single cured ham hangs near the rafters like a delicious secret. You're warned not to even look at it unless someone's dying. Possibly more than one person. Your uncle sharpens axes. Wood must be gathered every few days just to keep the fire going. He says winter kills more quietly than wolves do. You nod, even though you're not quite sure what he means. You're starting to understand that metaphors in the Dark Ages often aren't metaphors. There's no farming to do now. The fields are sleeping. So your tasks shift, mending clothes, making candles, cleaning tools, cracking ice from the well, and helping to patch holes in the hut's walls with moss and dung. The good kind of dung, though. Insulating. Your nose runs constantly. You sniff so much your sister starts calling you Whistlehead. You don't mind. It's kind of funny. Kindness feels warmer than wool. But then your uncle gets sick. Again. This time, it's not the gentle kind. He comes back from chopping wood with blue lips and a wheeze that sounds like a broken bellows. He tries to act tough, says it's just a frost cough, but within 2 days, he's bundled in all the blankets, eyes hollow, muttering half-finished prayers. You help feed him warm broth, made from bones and nettles. You pretend it's helping. You hear your mother whispering at night. She thinks she saw a shadow at the window. A fetch, she says. A spirit sent to collect the dying. You pretend not to hear. You stare harder into the fire, hoping it doesn't go out. You learn to take comfort in small things now. The way steam rises from a bowl of porridge. How your breath makes shapes in the cold. The warm weight of the pig when it lies against your legs at night. One afternoon, you and your sister venture out to collect firewood near the edge of the woods. It's snowing again, gently, like the sky is shedding feathers. You find a few fallen branches, some dry moss, and a dead rabbit already half buried under snow. Dinner. She hums a song neither of you know the words to. You hum along anyway. On the way home, you spot a deer in the trees. It looks at you, calm, unafraid. A few heartbeats pass before it leaps away, vanishing like a dream. For a moment, you feel something like magic. Back home, your uncle's worse. He can't speak now, just breathes in short, choppy gasps. Your mother sits by his side, clutching a carved cross, whispering words so old they taste like stone. You ask if she thinks he'll die. She doesn't answer. The next morning he's gone. There's no ceremony this time. The ground is too hard to dig more graves. So your uncle is placed on a wooden board and left in the snow-covered shed next to your cousin. It feels like they're waiting in line. Later, someone mentions elves. Not the cheery kind with bells and cookies. No, these are forest spirits, cold-hearted and ancient. The kind that slip in through cracks in the walls and take men's warmth while they sleep. Historians still debate how seriously these beliefs were held, or whether they were just comforting ways to explain tragedy. Either way, tonight your mother leaves a bowl of milk near the door. Just in case, you lie awake that night wrapped in all the furs you can find. You listen to the wind howling through the trees, rattling the shutters, whispering secrets too old to understand. You're scared, not the sudden kind of fear, like when Jerkwing used to dive at your head. This is the deep, slow kind. The kind that builds in your bones when you know the cold isn't leaving anytime soon. Still, you sleep, and you dream, not of darkness, but of fire. A great glowing hearth surrounded by laughing faces, bowls of stew, songs with no words, and a warmth that never fades. In the dream, you're not alone. By the time spring begins to whisper its return, just a breath of warmth in the wind, a patch of green peeking beneath the frost, you've forgotten what it feels like to sweat. But today, the thaw has finally come. Not all at once, no grand blooming or trumpet fanfare, just a trickle from the eaves, a softened path beneath your boots, the faintest scent of mud over smoke. And with the mud, the market. Once a month, the village hosts a market day. It's not exactly Paris, or even a proper town, but traders, tinkers and miracle sellers come from nearby settlements. People gather, barter, gossip, and, crucially, air out their smells. Your mother gives you a coin, worn so smooth you can barely tell what face was ever stamped on it. Only if you see garlic, she says. In the same tone someone might say, only if you find gold dust and angel feathers. You throw on your cloak, grab your sister, and head down the squelching path toward the village green. The market is already buzzing, despite the lingering chill in the air. It smells like everything. Smoke, sheep, drying fish, old onions, wet dog, stale ale, manure, and, somewhere under it all, a whiff of roasted chestnut. You inhale deeply. Heaven. The first thing you see is the fishmonger. He's set up 3 baskets full of trout, eels, and one creature you're pretty sure is a river goblin. You don't linger long, too much eye contact with something that still has its teeth. Next, there's a potter selling misshapen bowls, a tinker mending kettles with sparks flying from his makeshift anvil, and a mysterious woman with a tray of dried herbs labeled love, sleep, courage, and goose tranquility. You don't ask what that last one means. You're afraid she'll tell you. Children dart through the crowd. One runs past you, mouth sticky with honey, holding a dried fig like it's treasure. Your stomach growls. You consider trading your coin for a treat, but garlic is the mission. You stay strong. Then you spot them, jongleurs, street performers. They juggle, they sing, they do backflips that turn into belly flops if the mud's too thick. One man is dressed as a goat, bleating between cartwheels. Another pretends to faint every time someone sneezes. It's brilliant. You laugh until your ribs ache. For a few minutes, the world feels different, brighter, faster, funnier. It's like waking up from the dark ages into something sparkling. Even your sister smiles, her teeth showing through the mud on her chin. Suddenly, a loud crack. A man has fallen off a barrel, trying to balance a goose on his head. The goose is fine. The man is not. Everyone claps anyway. You help him up. He thanks you by handing you a small wooden whistle carved like a fox. For bravery, he says, and limps away. You add it to your growing collection of strange things that feel like good luck charms. You continue wandering. You pass a man selling miracle water. You sniff it. Definitely just goat pee. A boy playing a one-string fiddle like his life depends on it, and a booth of bells carved from bone. They jingle eerily in the wind. Finally, at the far end of the market, you see her, the garlic woman. She's old, wrapped in so many shawls, she looks like a sentient quilt, but her stall smells heavenly. Strings of garlic hang like treasure. You hand her your coin, and she gives you 3 heads, small, dry, and perfect. Mission complete. But before you leave, you spot something, a cloth doll. Nothing fancy, just rags and buttons, but it reminds you of your cousin. You ask the price. The woman squints. One smile. You grin wide enough to hurt your cheeks. She nods and hands it over. Back home, the garlic is placed on a shelf like a sacred object. Your mother beams. She cuts off a clove and tosses it into the bubbling pot. It'll keep your toes from falling off, she says. You're not sure how, but it tastes amazing. Dinner is louder than usual. The market has filled everyone with stories and warmth. Your sister reenacts the goose incident, falling backward onto a sack of onions. Your father laughs so hard he chokes on his stew. Later, you sit by the hearth turning the doll over in your hands. You tuck it into the rafters, nestled between a pouch of dried sage and the fox whistle. Protection, you tell yourself. For what? You don't know. But it feels right. That night, you dream of the market, of music, laughter, and bone bells ringing in the wind. In the dream, Jerkwing the crow wears a jester's hat and tries to sell you a second-hand sausage. You almost buy it. The next week begins with a rumble, not thunder, not hooves, something stranger. You're out by the stream, collecting water in a bucket so old it leaks regrets, when the sound reaches your ears, a deep metallic clatter, distant but approaching. Birds lift from the trees. Even the pig, who rarely takes anything seriously, snorts and shuffles nervously. Then you see it. A knight. Not a storybook knight, not a clean, gallant hero with flowing locks and a talking sword. This one is real, massive, armor-clad, and riding a horse that looks like it was carved from granite. The armor shines dully under a thin coat of dust, dented from past battles, and creaks like a haunted door every time he shifts in the saddle. He's flanked by 2 men-at-arms, less shiny, more scowly. One has a crossbow. The other has a face like a boiled turnip. You and every other child in the area freeze in unison. No one told you giants were real. Your first instinct is to run. Your second is to kneel. You do both, somehow, landing awkwardly in the mud with your forehead pressed to your leaky bucket. The knight rides past slowly, barely glancing at you. The turnip-faced man gives you a look that says, "You are so extremely beneath me, I might not even step on you." It's not personal. That's just how the nobility works. Once they're out of earshot, everyone starts breathing again. Your sister elbows you and hisses, "Did you see the sword?" You nod. It was longer than you are tall, and probably capable of cutting a house in half. You hurry home and find the whole village buzzing. The knight has stopped at the manor house on the hill, home of the local lord, a man you've seen maybe twice, and only from a distance. Word spreads fast. Some say the knight is here to collect taxes. Others think he's passing through on his way to fight bandits. One older woman swears he's a ghost sent to punish lazy farmers. Ghosts don't wear armor, someone says. Maybe they do now, she snaps. By afternoon, the knight is gone again, vanishing into the trees like a steel storm cloud. But his presence lingers. Everyone is a little quieter, a little tenser. That night, your father tells you what knights are really like. Most of them can't read. Not a one of 'em farms, but they swing a sword real pretty and take whatever they want, including your dinner, your ox, or your sister if they feel like it. You gulp. What stops them? He shrugs. God, or a bigger knight. You're not entirely comforted. He goes on, explaining how knights are part of the feudal order, which is a fancy way of saying they're in charge and we're not. You till the land. You give a chunk of what you grow to the Lord. The Lord owes service to a bigger lord. That lord owes the king. The king owes, well, mostly he just owes prayers to stay alive. Historians still argue whether the feudal pyramid was strictly followed, or more like a giant guessing game where everyone hoped the guy above them didn't come asking for anything. But here, at the bottom of it all, it means this: someone shows up in shiny armor, and you hand them food, respect, and maybe your last chicken. You don't complain, you don't even make eye contact. The next day you try to draw the knight in the dirt outside the hut. He ends up looking like a beetle with a spoon. But still, something about him stays with you. You ask your mother if knights are good. She stirs the pot and says, some are worse than wolves. Then she adds a pinch of herbs and mutters a prayer under her breath. You're not sure which one the prayer is for. That evening, your sister swears she saw the knight's horse again, alone, near the woods. You rush out to look, but there's nothing. Just hoof prints and a crow sitting smugly on a fence post. It caws once and flies off. Jerkwing. Still watching. You sit on the fence, watching the road, wondering where the knight went. What battles he's fought. Whether he ever feels afraid under all that armor. Whether anyone ever tells him bedtime stories, or if he just dreams of fire and blood. You fall asleep that night thinking of swords and horses and the soft jingle of chainmail. In your dreams, you wear a suit of armor made of wood and hope. You ride a goat into battle, brandishing a spoon. The enemy, Jerkwing of course, riding a lizard and armed with sarcasm. You lose. But you look good doing it. It begins with a whisper. The crops are failing. You don't understand what it means at first. You still see green in the fields. You still help your mother pull up turnips and shake dirt from their knotted roots. But the whisper grows louder. Everyone's talking about worms in the wheat, blight on the barley, and that awful smell rising from the cabbage patch. At first, the adults try to hide it. Meals become a little thinner, but no one says why. You start getting more broth, less bread. Your stomach growls longer between meals. The word famine floats around like an invisible mist. Then the animals start disappearing. The first to go is the duck that liked to chase you. No one says where it went, but your father suddenly returns from the manor with flour he didn't have before. Then your neighbor's goat vanishes. Sold, they say. But you saw the neighbor crying behind the shed. You help your mother dry nettles and dandelion greens. They're bitter, but edible. Sort of. You learn to chew slowly so it feels like more. Some people start eating bark, not even joking. Just soft inner bark from certain trees, boiled until it doesn't splinter your tongue. You try it. It's like chewing sadness. Your sister finds an old, shriveled apple in the hayloft and insists on splitting it 4 ways. You each get a piece the size of a fingernail. It tastes like heaven. Meanwhile, stories change. They get darker, stranger. Your grandmother tells one about a cursed cow that cried blood and walked backward into the woods. Another tale features a demon who turns bread to ashes if you don't share it. You notice the tales aren't really meant to entertain. They're warnings. At night, your father sharpens tools that haven't been used in months. He stares into the fire like it owes him something. Your mother ties herbs above the door, muttering protection charms from before the priest came to the village. Old words for old hunger, she says. Historians still argue whether these folk practices were true beliefs or just desperate rituals wrapped in tradition. Honestly, when your stomach is empty, a little magic starts to sound practical. Then comes the pig. It had been your companion, your foot warmer, your emotional support animal through mud and storm. You fed it scraps. You named it Sir Snuffles. You even tried to teach it tricks. It failed. But now, it's food. Your father says it softly. It's time. You don't argue. You just nod. You don't want to watch. You don't. But you do. It's quick. Not painless. You don't cry until later, when no one's looking. That night, the stew smells richer than anything you've had in months. Meat, garlic, fat, and something like guilt. You eat 3 bowls. Then comes the pigskin drying on the wall, the bones strung to make tools. Nothing is wasted. That's the rule. Your dreams that night are strange. You see Sir Snuffles in a crown, sitting on a throne of turnips, offering you soup. You wake laughing, then crying, then laughing again. You're not the only one struggling. You pass villagers with hollow eyes and cracked lips. The miller's daughter faints at the well. The priest fasts for spiritual purification, though you think he's just trying to make the bread last longer. And then, one morning, you see something terrifying. A dying pig. Not yours. Another one. Someone else's last hope. Its ribs show through its skin. It wheezes, shivers, and stares at you with dull, glassy eyes. You feel a chill deeper than any winter frost. This is how bad it's gotten. You take your wooden whistle and tuck it under your shirt. For comfort, for magic, for hope. That night, your sister brings home a surprise. 2 half-rotten apples she found behind the manor house. You scrape off the soft spots and roast the rest by the fire. They smell like old summers. You both smile for the first time in days. Tomorrow, your father says, we ask the monks for help. The monastery nearby is known for bees and beer. Maybe also mercy. That night, you dream of food, not feasts, but normal things, warm bread, milk, berries still warm from the sun. You bite into one, and it bursts with flavor so real you cry in your sleep. And when you wake, you're still hungry, but not hopeless. The road to the monastery snakes through hills, misted with early spring fog. You walk it with your father, bundled in your warmest cloak, a sack of turnips over one shoulder, a peace offering. Maybe a bribe, maybe both. The path is quieter than usual. No birds, no pilgrims. Just the crunch of your feet and the creak of your father's old boots. Then you see it, high stone walls wrapped around a square of buildings like a fortress dreaming of peace. The monastery isn't grand, but it's solid. Heavy wooden doors, a bell tower that leans just slightly, and a smell in the air like honey and ink. You knock once, then again. A small window opens with a creak. A monk peers through, blinking like he's never seen the sun. He sniffs, glances at the turnips, and opens the door. Inside, it's quiet. No laughter, no shouting. Just the soft shuffle of feet on stone and the occasional muttered prayer. You're led to the guest chamber. They offer you water, bread, and something sweet, actual honey. You nearly sob into the bowl. It's like someone melted heaven and smeared it on a spoon. Your father speaks with the brother in charge. You can't hear much, but there's a lot of nodding, murmuring, and glancing at you. Eventually, the monk pats your father's shoulder, and they both breathe in relief. You'll get a few loaves of bread, maybe even some wax for candles. In exchange, your father will help repair the monastery's fence next week. Fair enough. While they talk, another monk beckons you aside. He's younger, rounder, and smells faintly of bees. "Want to see the scriptorium?" he whispers, like it's a secret. You follow him through winding halls into a room that hums with quiet energy. Light pours in from high, narrow windows. Rows of desks hold open books, quills, scraps of parchment, and bowls of ink, the color of storm clouds. A monk sits hunched at a desk, painstakingly copying letters into a manuscript. Each stroke is slow and deliberate, as if the words might explode if done too quickly. You stare in awe. You can't read, but you feel the power in the lines. "Latin," your guide whispers. "God's language." You ask if they ever copy stories about dragons, saints, curses. He nods. "And bees," he adds proudly. "I'm the bee monk." Turns out, beekeeping is one of the monastery's main skills. Honey for medicine, wax for candles, and bees, well, because bees are holy in their own buzzy way. He takes you out to the garden, where rows of woven hives sit like little huts. Bees flit lazily from flower to flower. He teaches you how to hum low and steady so they won't sting. You try. It works. You feel like magic. Back inside, he hands you a piece of parchment. It's blank. "Practice drawing letters," he says. "Start with A. A is for Amen." You trace a crooked A with your finger. It looks like a scared ladder, but the monk nods with approval. You don't want to leave. It smells better here. People speak softly. There's bread and bees. But soon your father calls. Time to return. You walk home with a heavier sack, bread, wax, a dried fig tucked secretly into your pocket. You chew it slowly, memorizing the taste. You tell your sister about the books, the bees, the singing hum that makes the sting go away. She's impressed. Or at least pretends to be. That night, your mother lights a new candle made from monastery wax. It burns clean and steady, filling the hut with golden light. You sit by it, tracing more crooked letters into the dirt floor. A, B, almost C. Your father watches you. "Maybe one day," he says, "you'll be a monk." You picture yourself in robes, writing books about fish who talk and saints who sneeze miracles. Maybe, maybe not. But just in case, you hide your parchment under your blanket. You sleep dreaming of ink and bees, of humming letters into being, of words that glow in the dark like tiny saints on a page. The moon disappears. You're not the only one who notices, of course. The whole village stands frozen in the field outside the church, staring upward in horrified silence as the pale, glowing face of the moon is slowly eaten by shadow. It's a total lunar eclipse, though no one here knows those words. All you know is, the moon is gone. Your sister grips your hand tightly. She whispers, "Did someone steal it?" You don't answer. You're busy wondering whether it's your fault. You did spill that milk last week and forget to pray afterward. Could be related. Then, the screaming starts. A woman throws herself to the ground, wailing. A man clutches a wooden cross and holds it toward the sky like he's trying to push back the darkness. Someone dumps a bowl of garlic water onto the earth. The priest rings the bell wildly, shouting Latin phrases you can't understand but recognize as panicked. A chicken flaps through the crowd, adding chaos to confusion. You should be scared. You are scared. But deep down, a small part of you also feels thrilled, like you're standing in the middle of a story. The kind that gets whispered for generations, and just as suddenly as it vanished, the moon begins to return. At first it's just a thin sliver, like a silver coin peeking through ash. Slowly, it grows. People hold their breath. The screams fade to murmurs. Someone begins to pray, not out of fear, but awe. You look around. Every face is turned upward. Even the animals have gone quiet. Then, the moon is back. Not quite the same, though. Now it seems brighter, wiser, like it knows what you've seen. The priest declares it a miracle. Others mutter about omens and punishment, and that one widow who definitely knows spells. Your mother ushers you back inside quickly, tossing salt over her shoulder and murmuring words you haven't heard since your cousin's death. Historians still argue whether eclipses in the medieval world were interpreted as divine warning, natural phenomena, or just really bad news for people with goats. In your village, it's all three. That night, no one sleeps well. The moon shines too brightly now. Your dreams are strange and flickering. You see the sky falling into the sea, the stars rearranging themselves into words you almost understand. In the morning, the fields are silent. Even Jerkwing doesn't show his smug beak. But eventually, life resumes. You help your mother patch a roof tile, your sister grinds herbs for an ache in her tooth, and you try to make sense of the sky with a stick and some mud drawings. You even ask the priest what happened. He squints at you and says, "Sometimes God just closes his eyes." You're not sure if that's comforting or terrifying. Later that week, a man arrives at the village. He wears a ragged cloak, walks with a limp, and carries a bag full of bones. Naturally, you follow him. He stops in the center of the green and begins telling stories to anyone who will listen. Tales of moon beasts and sky swallowers, of cursed kings and glowing wolves. He shows a bone he says belonged to a sky dragon. It's clearly a pig rib, but you pretend to be impressed. So does everyone else. You ask where he saw the moon vanish from. He says, "Everywhere." You ask if it'll happen again. He says, "Probably." Then he hands you a small charm, just a lump of wood with a symbol carved into it. "To keep the moon in place," he says, and then hobbles off toward the woods. You never see him again. You hang the charm by your bed that night, just in case. Later, your grandmother tells you a story about the moon being a goddess once, until she got bored of humans and started playing tricks. She disappears now and then, to remind us she doesn't belong to us, she says, her eyes reflecting the candlelight. You nod slowly. That makes more sense than most things. The sky remains clear the next few nights. The moon watches silently. You find yourself saying good night to it without realizing. And when you finally sleep, you dream of flying toward it on the back of a giant bee, holding your moon charm, whispering apologies for spilled milk and forgotten prayers. The moon forgives you, probably. You're walking, and walking, and still walking. This is pilgrimage, apparently. A sacred journey full of spiritual meaning, aching feet, and the constant smell of onions. It started with your mother handing you a bundle wrapped in cloth and saying, "You're going with Uncle, to see the relic, to pray." You tried to ask why, but the look she gave you said, "Don't argue with God." So now, here you are, 3 days into your very first pilgrimage. The goal, a distant abbey said to hold a splinter from the true cross, or a toenail, or possibly the saint's old sandals. The stories change depending on who's talking. You travel with a ragged group, mostly old women, 2 coughing boys, 1 suspiciously cheerful man who carries a sack of mystery bones, and your uncle, who's done this before and won't stop reminding you. He points at every bird, rock, and hill, and says things like, "Ah, that's where Brother Aldrich once saw an angel." You glance at the hill. It looks exactly like every other hill. You nod politely and keep walking. Pilgrimage, it turns out, is mostly about feet. Sore ones. You walk on mud, gravel, stones, and once through a puddle that smelled like fermented goat. You develop a blister the size of a walnut. Your uncle offers a medieval remedy, spitting on it and wrapping it in old moss. It sort of works, or maybe you're just numb. At night you sleep in barns, church porches, and once under a tree that may or may not be sacred. One woman swears she saw the Virgin Mary appear in its branches. Another says it was just an owl with digestive issues. You eat bread so hard, you consider filing your teeth into points. Occasionally someone offers holy water from a shrine. It tastes suspiciously like river water and goat pee. You drink it anyway, just in case. The closer you get to the abbey, the weirder the pilgrims become. One woman refuses to speak, only humming ancient hymns through a broken reed pipe. A man wears nothing but a burlap sack and a belt of thorns. Another walks entirely backwards, claiming it brings extra blessings. He keeps falling in ditches. You begin to wonder if pilgrimage is a test or some sort of spiritual prank. One afternoon, you pass a group of monks walking in silence, their heads bowed. They carry a reliquary the size of a loaf of bread, wrapped in velvet and tied with ribbons. Someone whispers, "It holds the blood of a martyr." Someone else whispers, "It's probably jam." You decide not to ask. Finally, after a week of sore legs, open skies, and some seriously unsettling dreams, you reach the abbey. It's massive, stone towers rising like teeth against the clouds. The doors are open, music echoes through the halls, and the smell of incense hits you like a cloud of holiness and mild eye irritation. You kneel before the relic. It's displayed in a golden frame, under thick glass, surrounded by candles and people sobbing gently. It looks small, kind of like a toothpick. Maybe it is a toothpick. Still, you feel something. Not just your aching knees or your rumbling stomach, but something inside. A sense of stillness, or awe, or maybe just relief that you're not walking anymore. You say a prayer, a real one, not for food or weather, or even for jerkwing to fall out of a tree. Just a quiet, honest prayer you don't try to explain. Afterward, you eat bread baked by monks, actual soft bread, laced with honey and almonds. You cry a little. It's okay. So does everyone else. That night, you sleep in the guest hall under a thick wool blanket. The walls are painted with saints and stars. You stare at the ceiling, feeling warm, clean, and strangely light. The next morning, you begin the journey home. It's easier now. Your feet have hardened. Your mind drifts as you walk, remembering the songs sung along the way, the odd little miracles, the way the abbey smelled like rain and old wisdom. You hum one of the songs. Your uncle joins in. So does the woman with the reed pipe. And for the first time, the path doesn't feel so long. The first strange thing is the dream. You wake gasping, heart pounding, after seeing your grandmother floating above the fire pit, eyes glowing, stirring a pot that bubbled with light. She looked right at you and said, "Don't tell them what's in the soup." Creepy? A little. But not entirely out of character for her. The second strange thing is that your neighbor's dog now refuses to go near your grandmother's hut. The third is the duck test. It starts with rumors, whispers traded between women at the well and men at the ale shed. Someone's cow miscarried. A batch of mead turned sour. A child broke out in boils and cried about shadows under her bed. And the midwife, your grandmother's old friend, said someone had left bones in a circle near the apple tree. All eyes turned to the edge of the village, to her hut. Your grandmother has always been different. Knows too much about plants, smells like sage and vinegar, owns an alarming number of spoons. But lately, people are nervous. The priest visits her. You don't hear what's said, but he walks out looking shaken and muttering prayers. Then one morning, 2 men knock at your door. She must come, they say, for the duck test. You freeze. You've heard of this. Everyone has. The duck test is simple. Toss a woman into water. If she floats, she's a witch. If she sinks, well, she's innocent, technically, but also possibly drowned. So, not a win-win. Your mother tries to argue. Your father stays silent. Your grandmother? She shrugs, grabs her walking stick and says, "Let's go then? Don't want the duck waiting." The village gathers near the pond, cold, shallow, and filled with weeds and nervous energy. Your grandmother removes her shawl. Someone ties her wrists loosely. She winks at you before they lower her in. She floats, just a little. Enough for the gasps to ripple through the crowd. "She's light," someone whispers. "Like a crow feather." "She's resisting the water," says another. "Unnatural." Your grandmother coughs and says, "Maybe I'm just gassy." You choke back a laugh. Bad timing. Very bad timing. She's pulled out and left sitting on the bank, wet and entirely unrepentant. A few villagers cross themselves. Others keep their distance. No one makes a move to punish her. Not openly. But the silence is heavier now. When she passes, people look away. No more gossip. No more visitors. Even your little brother stops asking for her stories. You still visit though. She feeds you broth, thick with roots and mystery, and tells you not to worry. "They need someone to blame when things get hard," she says. "Always have." She shows you her real soup pouch, tiny bones, dried herbs, and something that glows faintly under moonlight. You pretend it's just your imagination. It's easier that way. Historians still argue whether medieval witch hunts were about fear of the unknown, control of women, or local politics wrapped in folklore. Probably all three. In this village, it feels like fear looking for a name. The priest tries to reclaim the mood with extra blessings. More incense, more water, more stern sermons about resisting temptation. But people still glance sideways at your grandmother's hut. Then something odd happens. A baby is born healthy. A long dry well starts flowing again. A missing ox returns on its own. Some start to wonder if maybe she's protected the village, not cursed it. One woman even leaves bread and cheese by her door. You ask your grandmother if she did anything. She winks again and says, "I stirred the soup the other way." Later, you find the duck waddling near your hut. It looks fine. You feed it some crumbs and tell it, "Good job, I guess." That night, you sleep near your grandmother's fire, wrapped in a blanket that smells like thyme and stories. You dream of a house made of herbs, floating above the trees, with a duck for a doorkeeper and soup that sings lullabies. In the morning, she hands you a charm, woven grass with a feather in the middle. "For nightmares," she says. It works, probably. It starts with a horn. Low, distant, then another. Closer. You're out in the field, trying to patch a hole in the fence with a stick and some hope, when you hear it. Your hands freeze. So does the air. Everything stills, like the village itself is holding its breath. A messenger rides through minutes later. His horse is lathered in sweat, and his voice cracks as he shouts, "All able-bodied men and boys, called to arms, the Lord needs fighters." Fighters. You don't know exactly what that means, but judging by the looks on the adults' faces, pale, tight-lipped, it isn't good. You're not quite old enough to be called a man, but not quite young enough to be ignored, so you're handed a spear the next morning. It's taller than you, crooked at the tip. No armor, no training, just a nod from the steward and a muttered prayer from your mother as she ties a cloth pouch around your neck. "Salt and thyme," she says, "for courage, or seasoning if you get cooked." You laugh, a little, and then you march. The group forms at the edge of the village, farmers, millers, smiths, apprentices. You recognize nearly every face. They look like you. Scared, underfed, angry. Most carry sticks, old swords, or tools repurposed as weapons. One man brings a shovel. Another has a pitchfork with one tine missing. A priest walks alongside, chanting in Latin. You hum along quietly, not sure of the words. But it helps. You ask your uncle, who was pressed into leading your group, what war this is. He snorts. One lord insulted another, something about borders, or pigs, or someone's niece. Doesn't matter. Now we bleed for it. And so you go. The road is dry, the wind sharp. You sleep under hedges, eat stale bread, and trade ghost stories for warmth. Someone starts a game. What would you eat right now if you could? Boiled eggs, a pie, porridge without weevils, an entire goose, feathered. You laugh, a little harder this time. Then you reach the gathering point, a muddy field near a castle wall. Hundreds of others are there, some armored, most not. A few real soldiers bark orders and glare at anyone breathing too loudly. You train for one day. And by train, you mean someone waves a stick at you and says, "Don't die," then shows you how to hold a spear without stabbing your own foot. Historians still debate whether peasant levies in the Middle Ages were useful or just padding for casualty lists. From where you're standing, it feels like the latter. The battle comes at dawn. You stand in a line, spear out, knees shaking. Next to you, a boy throws up. Ahead of you, the fog begins to part, and you see them, the others, not monsters, not devils, just more tired boys in muddy tunics holding spears. You wonder if they're scared too, if their mothers gave them time. The shouting starts, then the running, then chaos. You don't remember much, just noise, crashing, screaming. A horse rearing over your head, mud in your mouth, blood on your hand, but not yours. You don't stab anyone, not on purpose. You mostly wave your spear and shout things like, "Ah," and "back," and once, inexplicably, "turnip." Hours blur. You don't know if you win or lose. Eventually, someone yells, "They're retreating," and the shouting changes tone. Laughter mixes with crying. You sit down in the mud and feel your arms shaking. Your uncle finds you. He's limping. His cheek is cut. He grins and says, "Still alive. That's a win." You nod. Later, you help carry the wounded. Wrap cloth around wounds. Pray over the still bodies. You see a boy your age who looks like you. He doesn't blink. You walk away fast. By nightfall, you're sent home. No feast, no song, just blisters, bruises, and a handful of coin you're told to be proud of. Back in the village, your mother hugs you so hard you nearly break. She checks every inch of you before letting go. You sleep for a day and a half. When you wake, you hang your spear on the wall. Not out of pride, but to remind you how close it came to staying out there in that field, stuck in the mud, standing where you never would again. You're 36, and everyone says you've lived a long life. That's not sarcasm, it's genuine awe. In your village, where most people vanish somewhere between their second teeth and their second child, reaching your mid-30s is like discovering fire again. Your back aches when you stand. Your knees sound like a bag of peas being stepped on. Your teeth? Gone. All but 4, each one a survivor, crooked and proud. Your hair is thinning, silver at the temples. When a child asks how old you are, they do so like you're a wizard. You take it in stride. Mostly. You still wake up before the sun. Not because you want to, but because your joints like to hold early morning planning meetings. You stretch, cough, spit something questionable into the ashes of the hearth, and begin your day. These days, you don't chase crows. Someone else does. You supervise. You mutter advice like, "That one knows your rhythm. Change your clapping." The younger kids don't always listen. You let them learn. You're not as fast as you used to be, but you've become respected. People nod when you speak. They ask about the weather, the crops, the signs in the sky. You tell them what you remember. Sometimes you even make things up. Who's going to argue? You've lost people. So many. Your cousin, your uncle, that cheerful man with the mystery bone sack from the pilgrimage, and Sir Snuffles. Always Sir Snuffles. But others have been born. You have a son now. 2, actually. One just started walking. The other already lies with his face in books at the monastery, writing Latin letters better than you ever did. You're proud, even if you pretend you're not. It's tradition. Your mother is gone. Your grandmother too, vanished one night in her sleep, a faint smell of time left behind. You buried her with the duck charm and the spoon she always used to stir the good batch. You still have the fox whistle. You use it to call children to dinner, or to make them laugh. It works every time. One day, a traveler stops by, a boy with wide eyes and calloused feet. He asks if you've ever seen the moon disappear. You grin and tell him the story of the night the sky blinked. You add a few flourishes, embellishments, like the part where a comet streaked past and someone fainted into a duck. He listens, rapt, and you feel alive. Not like a child, not like a warrior, not like a witch's grandchild, but like someone who's been through it all, and somehow, is still sitting by the fire, eating barley soup that tastes better now, even if it's the same recipe. The winters don't frighten you as much anymore. You know what to do: store the garlic, share the bread, check on your neighbors. You still light a candle on the first night of frost. You still hum the bee song you learned at the monastery. You even keep herbs above the door, just in case. When the wind howls, you listen to it. It doesn't scare you. It sounds like a memory. Sometimes you walk out to the field where you first chased jerkwing. You think about the dirt under your nails, the cold in your boots, the pride you felt scaring off birds. You wonder what happened to him. You joke that he's probably a bishop now. And then, one evening, you don't get up. You feel the fire's warmth against your knees. You hear your daughter humming as she chops onions. Your son laughs in the background. A soft breeze sneaks through the wall, cracks and brushes your cheek. You close your eyes. No pain, no fear, just stillness. And in that stillness, you see it all. The sky, the fields, the market, the moon, the saints, the goose, the soup, the duck, the bones, the bee hives, the boy with the sack of bones, the knight with the sad eyes, and your grandmother's crooked smile. You've lived a whole world, and then you sleep. Forever. But not alone. So now, we gently close the wooden door on that life, a life made of stone paths and cold mornings, of crows and candles, of laughter muffled by wool and stories whispered by firelight. There was rhythm. There was resilience. You can almost feel the texture of that world, the straw under your fingers, the warmth of the hearth on cracked skin, the flicker of light through oiled parchment. And even though it's long gone, buried beneath centuries of change, it still lingers. In songs, in stories. In the quiet way we sometimes glance at the moon and feel that strange, ancient awe. So take a deep breath now. Let it out slow. You don't need to carry the weight of turnips or spears or cold mud anymore. You've seen what it was like. You've walked the long road, tasted the barley, listened to the bells, and whispered prayers in languages half forgotten. You've lived a whole life in the dark ages, and now, here in your own time, in your warm bed, with the soft hum of a fan and the quiet of the night pressing gently against your window, you can finally rest. No crows, no frost, no sword, just sleep. You've earned it.